Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. I'm studio director, head of studio. That's the title. Head of studio. It's been a long week already. Will Shick. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. Really missed hanging out with you guys over the last week. I'm glad that everybody is back. We have our Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin of Crime. We're going to finish him up today. If you missed last week's stream, we mostly just focused on getting his flashy suit in order. So it was a whole lot of painting black, talking about the process and all that stuff. So we're ready to dive in and finish up this Kingpin today, hopefully, and get him ready for the tabletop. So I am just going to bounce over to my camera, which is clearly not working, which is great. Give me 1 second here. Why did we lose that feed? Ah, that's why. It always helps if you plug in all of your cameras. Here we go. We're doing well. Like I said, today's a good day. And there we go. Now we've got it. Click that. Go to this. This is what we all came for. Get her to focus in. All right, so this is where we left off on our Kingpin. We did a little repair work on the cane, so if you're wondering why the cane looks a little different than the one you saw in Dallas' stream, it's because mine broke when I dropped it down a flight of steps, so we did a quick repair job with some brass rod. You can also check that out. Really good way to kind of learn how to adjust when catastrophes happen. And yeah, we're just going to dive in. So the first thing I want to do is I want to do the undershirt and the lapels. I'm going to be doing the undershirt as a bright red. I'm going to do the lapels as kind of a darker sanguine, a purple, a kind of a purplish red, just to give them a bit of color pop. And then really it's buttons, skin. We'll have to decide how we want to paint the flesh, and finishing up his shoes, and maybe we'll get a chance to work on that Nelson and Murdoch sign that he is so menacingly standing on. All right, so with that said, I'm going to grab my colors. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is a color that I use a lot. I used it on the Doctor Strange stream as well. This is Model Air Red from Vallejo. So this is one of the few non-scale colors that I like to use. The great thing about the air colors is that they're already pre-thinned for an airbrush, and this makes them work really well with the Zenith Prime highlighting that we do. So this comes through to just really work with that light and dark undertone. It's already kind of pre-thinned, so you don't have to do a lot to it. And I find that it has a really nice color saturation, so it gives a really good pop for reds. So I'm just going to do a little loosening with water, and then I'm going to come in and I'm just going to look. I'm going to do my best to avoid the skin and the tie, just to make my life a little easier. But we're just going to come in. If we get a little bit on, that's okay. We can always clean up. So notice that I'm really just allowing that capillary action from the thinness of the paint to take over, and I'm just kind of tapping it in to get that color going. That brush doesn't have a great point because it's old and probably needs to be replaced, but why would we ever replace anything? That's often a thing. You have to really appreciate the fact that your hobby tools are not forever friends, as Dallas calls them. They do have a lifespan. You can increase it quite a bit by taking care and, you know, being careful and doing good brush maintenance and things like that. But eventually, you will need to get new brushes. It's always a momentous occasion when I open a new brush. I think I did it on stream one time, and we had a little mini party. But you can see how this red is just working really nice. It's leaving a lot of translucency, which allows the shading of that Zenith Prime that we like to use on here to be really open. This red works really great on capes. Gets really good results very fast, and is ideal for, you know, getting to that tabletop standard pretty quick. Get the other sleeve here. Dallas is currently working on the white suited Wilson Fisk. I decided to go with the black suit because he's about to take care of some business, and he doesn't want any splatters on his fancy suit. So, all right, I'm just going to go back over this one more time, but this is really quick. Now there's a lot of ways we can go about shading This red we could use a crimson ink. We'd use brown. We could use blue. Blue is a great shade color for reds. It kind of just depends on the overall tone and warmth that you want out of it. We could not shade it at all. That's certainly an opportunity or a possibility. I'm going to go with, next up, this Hastur purple. So this is kind of that sanguine color I'm talking about. So it's definitely like, it's a reddish purple. It's got a lot of purple in it. It's still pretty red. So exactly like the art on the tactic card. This is the suit he should be wearing when he goes and punches Daredevil in the nose for the 20th time. But this Hastur purple has a nice like depth to it. It's going to work really well with the blues that are in our black for the suit. It's going to tie nicely with the reds as well, that we're doing for the bright kind of silk shirt. I imagine it's a red silk shirt. That seems like a Fisk thing. So I'm just going to do the lapels because I want that extra pop of color. So this is just pretty much straight out of the pot with a little bit of water. Not worrying so much about, because it's a small area and it's pretty flat, I'm not really worried about doing the washing like we did for the suit or for the shirt. We're just going to kind of knock these out in a more traditional base coat highlight kind of way. So really at this point, it's just about taking a little bit extra time, being careful as you go around, because we want to try to avoid getting spillover on our completed suit, since we spent a whole stream kind of getting that to the point that we were all very happy with it. But we do have our brush for mistakes, so I can erase. Again, always keep that clean, damp brush with you, very close, and if you do go over, you can use it to very quickly fix any of your mistakes like I just did there. You might not even be able to see it on camera, but I can. So I just grab my clean brush, get it a little damp, and then I just scrub it away and blend it right out. You can even get paint that's dried more off if you keep at it with the scrub. All right, so there we have that nice juxtaposition between the sanguine and that. So we've got the lapels going on. Pretty happy with how that's looking, so we'll let that dry. We've got to figure out a tie color. And then we got to do the shoes, so let's knock out the shoes really quick. We're just going to go, we'll go straight black for the shoes. We'll make them nice and shiny, I think. So I'm just going to grab my flat black. And we're just going to come in here. We're just going to knock these out. Maybe we'll use a little gloss medium and we'll just go crazy. I think I have some gloss medium here. So one of the tricks that you can use on black, if you want it to be a really shiny black, is you can just paint pure flat black. You can use a gloss medium after that, which makes things really shiny. You obviously need to make sure to do that gloss coat after you've dull coated it. So if you're going to use a matte coat or any kind of protective coat, spray application, that stuff, which I highly recommend you do on your finished miniatures, because every paint kind of has a satin finish, so it's good to get that satin finish off. If you use a lot of washes and stuff, those typically have a higher gloss. So using that matte coat to kind of seal the miniature and tighten up all the colors, it's really good. But if you've gone to the trouble of using a gloss varnish to make something shiny and then you hit it with that, it's going to, of course, kill all the gloss. So don't do that step until you're done with everything else. I'm going to go back now, and I'm just going to do a second thin coat of my sanguine color, my Hastur purple. I need to come down here a little bit because I missed that. So we've got that fold, so we want to hit this as well. I don't think Josh has posted the rules yet for this guy, which is unfortunate. Maybe he'll do that today. Maybe tomorrow. Who knows? Josh is a fickle man. He does what he chooses. Like we talked about on last stream, I'm really excited for people get their hands on this character to see the new affiliation that he brings with, and just the new way he brings to play with the game. The Criminal Syndicate was a really fun one to design and develop along with Pagani and our play testers, and I'm really happy with where it came out. I think it's going to be a very fun inclusion to the game, and I think they play very, very well in terms of what people will expect Criminal Syndicate to do. I'm going to grab some Dwarven Gold from Scale. We're going to dive into these buttons. This is just a nice rich gold. Give us some more pop. Again, because we have such a dark kind of overall suit, I'm just going for colors that are going to help give some nice contrast to that. And that will really add that extra level of zing to the miniature. So with these buttons, normally what I'd want to do is I'd want to take like a dark shade, especially on a white. Get the hair out of that brush. Especially on, like, if I was doing the white suit version, I'm sure Dallas will talk about this a little bit, you'd want to take a shade color and kind of wash the buttons first so you could build up that volume and that shape around the button. And that will just, it'll help the eye see that that button is raised. Because we're already using a really dark black, there's not really any way to separate that button. So what we're going to do instead is we'll use a slightly different color. We'll use a brown, and we'll just wash the buttons really nice, and we'll let the black underneath. So I'm just being careful to only hit the top of the button, and then I'm leaving a little bit of black around the rim so that we don't mush the button into the suit, which is what we don't want to do. There's a lot of really fun ways to approach golds as well. When you're shading them, you can use browns and sepia tones, which is kind of the classic way. One of my favorite ways, though, is to use purple. So you can use violet inks or purple washes. And the thing with purple is that it adds a really interesting depth and richness to the gold, which makes it feel like it's really well used. So if you're doing, maybe not so much on this fancy Kingpin suit, but if you're doing a character that has gold armor that they've worn a lot, like combat armor, or you want something that feels very regal and rich in life and age, using purple on your golds will work really well. And it will really give them that life that you want to see. Do we want to do anything on his shoes? No, I don't think so. Kind of feel like I want to give him bowling shoes just to make it weird. Okay. So there's our gold. We'll let that set. I'm going to come back to my reds. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a mixture of Inktense Crimson. And I'm going to use a little bit of violet just to kind of deepen it up. So we're going to go with a very red kind of wash. And that violet will give me that little bit of blue that I want. But it's going to maintain the nice richness of the reds. And I'm going to be able to use this over both of my red colors here. So again, this is just a very classic wash. So I used a little bit of medium. I used the inks. I used some water. Mixed up something that had some nice translucency to it, and I'm just letting this primarily flow into the cracks and the crevices to add depth to my reds. But like any wash, it's going to tint the surface as well. Go a little heavier in these really deep folds. But the idea here is to just use this in order to really pick out separation. I'm going to go carefully under the skin. We're going to go over the sanguine part, and this is just really going to pick out, because I use a little bit of that violet in there, it's going to help pick out the violet of the Hastu or purple, and then that red's also going to accentuate it. So we're just going to get this really nice, rich, like Cabernet feel to it. A really nice deep red wine. So this guy looks like he's ready to have a night. A really great night on the town. And you're going to see how, like I talked about before, washes and inks will really add a whole ton of gloss to the final miniature, which is why, again, you want to take that extra step. You want to matte seal them for protection and to really tone down some of the effects of that stuff. For our tie, I gotta think about that more, how I want to do that tie. I think a black tie probably makes the most sense, so that's likely where we'll go. But instead what we're going to do is we're going to dive back in. I'm just going to show you, hopefully it'll show up, how, because I've got that violet ink already out, how purple affects that gold wash. So I'm going to use purple as my wash. And again, this is really going to tint the gold in a way that's going to add a lot of warmth or a lot of depth to it. So it does some really interesting stuff. I really like it ever since I stumbled upon it from a different painter blog as I was looking at tips and tricks and how to use different tools, and it's kind of become my real go-to for most of the purples that I do now. I like using, or most of the golds that I do, I like using the purple ink over just about anything else, honestly, with how the effects come through. I can get a bit more light on my subject here. But it's definitely not, it doesn't add that kind of like natural richness to it in the same way as a brown or a yellow or a sepia will. Instead, it adds kind of that really antique, well-worn old luster. And it's pretty cool how it works, because it's mostly the purple reacting with the yellow. Yeah, Gamers Web is talking in the chat about, you know, how to paint metallics and getting that metallic colors, doing something with like a gold or a silver and then painting translucent colors over it like a wash or a glaze or candy coats. There's lots of different paints out there that will do that. There's always tricks. There's always things to learn and things that you can put in your repertoire and your toolbox, and that's kind of what we aim to do on this stream, is just provide a lot of different ideas and methodologies and stuff that you can then take and put into your own personal hobby toolbox and use as appropriate. But it's that teaching of how to paint, not what to paint. All right, so there we've got purple on the gold. So you kind of see how that completely changed the luster. And the other thing that I like about this is, again, that purple is going to tie back into our reds that we're doing, because we have that nice violet to the reds. We have the sanguine up here and all that good stuff. I'm going to go back. I'm going to grab my Hastur purple, and I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow off-white. And for this, I think this will work. So this Mojave white has a nice bit of yellow to it. Yellow and purple, again, they work really nice together. They make good friends on the mixing palette. So instead of just using like a pure white, using a more yellow white will really help those highlights pop. It'll make those colors tie together better with a lot less work. So understanding the undertones of your paints and the colors that you're using can be a really beneficial thing when trying to make natural highlights and natural shades, because outside of your primary colors, which are just solid, you know, boring old colors, every paint is a mixture of those primaries, so they're all going to have certain undertones to them that are going to affect how they play together. And you know, we talk about, you know, not using white because white actually robs vibrancy. So does black. Those colors, you know, white will make your colors go pastel and black just dulls the color. So neither of those are ones that you technically want to use too much if you can avoid it, unless you're going for a very specific look. We want that comic book look. We want those colors to be really rich and really vibrant. So finding the right colors to mix for highlights and shade that also have their own vibrancy to them and colors is really, really important. And you don't have to be a color theory student to start to grasp it. You'll just start to naturally look at it. You can always look at recipes that people do, and you'll just start to get a feel for it. And your eye will be pretty good about picking out that stuff too. So just play around with the paints that you have a little bit. Play around with the colors and pay attention to kind of what nets results that your eye likes, and you'll be off to a good start. Don't overstress it. But experimentation is kind of the best method for success, right? We learn more from our mistakes and our failures than we ever do from our successes, because if you do it right the first time, there's nothing to learn. And that's nice, but my bet is that nobody here ever accomplished anything great on the first try. And that's part of the excitement of the hobby. It's part of the excitement of life and everything else, is that give yourself the freedom and the flexibility to be in situations where you might not succeed, and you'll amaze yourself with what you can accomplish with a little bit of determination. So I'm just using my secondary brush now to do a little bit of blending to smooth out my really top highlight colors. Here we're just coming in and doing that. And so I'm just progressively adding more and more of that Mojave white to my Hastur purple. And like I said, just doing kind of a really traditional edge highlighting approach. This is something that you'll see on a lot of different hobby tutorials. For every skill level, it's kind of that layer highlighting where you're just painting one color over the top of the next. And I'm using my second brush just to help with a little bit of blending so that I can make sure that my top highlight levels are really fine and my lines are a little less thick than they might normally be because of my, you know, the limitations on my fine motor skills. And then also, I can use that when I come in and make a mistake. And there we go. So there's kind of our sanguine color that we were talking about, getting on those lapels and stuff, and on that handkerchief all figured out. I realized that I missed this little part right here where the lapel is folded over, so I'll come back in and fix that. So now we've got that nice red going on. We have a nice red on the shirt. So we're going to jump in. Where do I post all my finished pieces from these streams? We often post them on the Facebook group. I don't think we've done like a full compilation of everything though. We should probably think about doing that. Josh, just for you, bud. Okay. So I'm going to highlight that red shirt just a little bit with this Baharit red, which is almost like a salmon color. It's got a lot of orange in it. Actually, it's almost bordering like a really red orange rather than a true red. And I'm just going to use this to kind of pick out a couple of edges really quick. Just to give our red a little extra pop. Again, I'll come back in. Do that. Here again, I'm just kind of looking at doing the collar, getting the lines, staying away from the crevices where that wash really pooled. Just give myself A little bit of extra distinction for the eye, because again, what we're doing mostly is creating illusions sometimes that trick the eye into seeing what we want it to see. And then a lot of times we're just giving the miniature itself a little extra help because the eye isn't perfectly great at being able to see things at 40 millimeters tall. So, well, the detail might be there if you look close enough by using some extreme highlighting and shading and some other tricks that we know how the eye sees things. Like, for example, dark things are going to push back, bright things are going to get brought forward. So here I'm using a really bright highlight on spots that are closest to the eye to actually accentuate how close they are, and that helps the eye identify and determine the volume. And you can use these tricks too once you get really clever and develop a little bit of skill to paint things that are not there. So it's a really good way sometimes to tackle faces and to get a lot of life and distinction in your features and stuff by understanding that. And of course, doing a lot of makeup tutorials helps too, because that's really what the art of cosmetics is about. It's just painting faces to trick the eye. So we got that going on. He looks great. Going in. And all right, so I've decided on my tie. We're going to grab a color that I have to find now, so that's helpful. Okay, we're going to take we're going to take this deep blue color, we're going to mix it with a bit of black. We're going to come up with kind of a blue, like what I'm looking for is a blue-black for the tie. So I want it to kind of evoke the shirt, but I want it to feel different. So mix those two together. Or the cravat, I guess. I don't know. Looks like a tie to me, but I'm sure it's some kind of fancy rich person neck piece. Dallas could tell us. He knows. He had it sculpted. He had it sculpted. But again, I'm choosing my colors based on kind of the overall composition that I have so far with everything going on. And you can see how I'm using all of my different angles and hopefully staying on camera to where you can see kind of what's going on for the most part to be able to get all the different spots. So use that three-dimensionality to be able to move the miniature around so you can see everything that's going on. All right, so there's kind of our blue-black tie. I'm going to grab one of my favorite colors right now is Arctic Blue, which is a blue-white. We use this a ton on the suit. So using it here for our highlight in this color that we just mixed up is going to be quite useful as well, because we're going to get some tying together. And of course we made a blue-black, so we want a blue-white. Again, we're playing with these undertones and stuff. So that our colors tie together and make sense. And we're getting kind of natural highlights and stuff as we go. So I'm just going to mix up really quick highlight. I'm not going to go crazy on this, but I just kind of want to pick out a couple of the spots. And so we're just going to come in, just kind of going to like highlight here. I'm just doing like some really quick scritchy lines to kind of give that texture and that feel. So there we go. And then come back in with my other brush. I can do a little bit of blending. really quick. And there we go. Tie is done. All right. Let's hit some of these jewels really fast, and then we'll jump to the skin. I'm going to use Brilli White, which is a fluorescent. It's just a crazy, crazy metallic white. Super, super bright. Pretty great for diamonds and other like fancy jewels. So it's going to be a great tool for us to use here for all of the bling that Mr. Fisk is wearing. So we're just going to go in, we're going to lay down a nice thick coat on that jewel on his tie. We will look, and we'll do really quick here. I'll come back in and block that stuff out in a second, but we just want to get this stuff laid down really quick. And we'll do the gold around it. I'm glad, chat and Jace Hoy, that you feel like your edge highlighting is getting better. We do try to make sure that the details are all there. That always helps. Okay, but that's awesome. Like we always say, everybody's just walking through their journey. There's a lot of places to go. So Dallas did Caucasian Kingpin. I feel like we gotta give a nod to the classic Daredevil movie, and we need to go with a Michael Clark Duncan nod here. So for this, I'm going to use some African Shadow, which is kind of a nice purple brown. And some good uses. And then I'm going to grab some Ishtar Pink as well. And we're just going to throw all these on the palette, and we're just going to start mixing and kind of having fun making things up. Might use a little Indian shadow too. But flesh tones, oftentimes the best way to get really good results is through just experimentation and playing around with the different colors that you have available to you. So just kind of using that shadow and the Ishtar Pink to make a nice foundation. And then once we have that going on, I might try using a couple of washes and stuff. So it's going to look a little purplish to start, but we're going to come back in and we're going to fix that as we keep going forward. So kind of a different way, rather than painting kind of a base coat, then doing a shade, we're going to kind of just do our highlight. And we'll come in and we'll use a wash to darken it up. Build that out. Those fingers in there. We'll get it nice and deep. But this will just provide a nice foundation for us to play with and to build up from. I think Dallas has mentioned it before, but obviously when approaching different skin tones and stuff, everybody pretty much has the exact same pigmentations. It just comes down to the levels of those pigments that each person has in their skin. So you use a lot of the same colors that you actually would to get more of those natural kind of skin tonations and stuff. And you can really play a lot with your different colors. And then obviously using washes and glazes. You can build up layers, you can shift colors. So you're never really trapped with one specific look. Like I said, we're going to use this purple kind of undertone, which some really beautiful ebony skins have in different levels and grades. I mean, even Caucasian skin, you know, has a lot of pink to it. So as you deepen pink, it turns more to that purple shade, but that's kind of what we're doing with our mixture of Ishtar and the African shade as well. Getting a little streaky, but that's okay. Oops. that stuff in, and it's okay if it's a little spotty right now because we're going to dive back in and do a couple more coats. This is kind of where we're going to start. So you can see we're definitely a little more on the purple side. That's okay because we do have places to go with it. We're just going to play around with some different colors and see what we can come up with. So that is probably too much. All right, we're going to go. So we're just going to dive in really quick while we wait for those colors to dry, because if we try to mess with them too soon, they're just going to come off. So I'm just going to grab an umber, and I'm going to work up kind of a wash to use over the top of this. We're just going to start shading stuff down as we go. So glaze medium with your paints, a little bit of water, and you can turn anything into a wash, because washing, we've talked about, is a technique. It's not a type of paint. Any paint can become a wash, so you never need to really worry about that. Okay, so we're just going to come in with that, and we're going to start coloring in over the top. You can see how now that umber is helping shade into the cracks and the crevices, the darker recesses. What's going on? So brush sizes, I'm using a couple different ones. I've got a size 1 and a size 0 for the most part this time. When I was working on the suit and some larger areas, I like to use a size 2. It really comes down to the point on your brush. So the problem that I'm having with my 1 is that it's old and its point isn't very good. I could actually use my 2 way better because it's actually a finer point than the 1. But I like the 1 because it gives me a little bit more control over how much paint is on the brush. So, and this has become a little bit of a wet blend because I'm trying to go fast. And so the paint on the face isn't completely dry like I'd normally want it, but that's okay, we'll work with it. Whoop. So you can kind of see how we got this nice rich ebony skin coming through now. And we can continue to accentuate that by simply going back through and doing a couple more layers of our wash slash glaze and coloring that skin in. And this is where a hairdryer really comes in handy if you have one, because you can just blast it with a hairdryer and dry it out really nice so you can keep going. But we'll just play with the wet blend now. And so wet blending is a technique that we've used a couple times. And really all I'm doing is I'm just using a couple of different brushes, and now I'm just mixing the paint literally on the miniature itself. And so I'm just playing with my colors, and everything went out of focus. Why are you out of focus? Focus! There we go. All right, there's no brush behind you, so I don't know why that happened. But yeah, wet blending is really fun because you just kind of like mix the paint on the miniature itself. And it can allow you to get some really smooth and interesting blends. And it's really hard to mess up on, because the second you go too far, you can just come back and rework the area. And there's really no way, as long as you keep your paints thin, to wind up overworking that area too much. So, just blast in here. Oh my gosh, my focus is just all over the place here. There we go. All right, so we're gonna let that dry a bit. And of course we need to go in and lighten up the cheeks a little bit, around the eyes, all that good stuff. Oh, nice. I'll have to take a look at that. Jace Hoey, I'm excited to see your Venom. Okay. So we've got that going on. We've got the red. We've got everything going on. Let's jump in and do, well, our browns dry up, and hopefully we'll have enough time to finish this guy up really quick. Let's go ahead and we'll do a little highlighting on the gold. We'll finish out the rings, and we'll see if we can get back in and do some highlights and stuff as well. So, I just want to get the top of his head a little bit better. Will it let me though? A little bit. Come on. I don't know why my camera's being so jerky today. So yeah, so you can see how that skin tone is coming through with the purple undertones and then the brown over top of it. That might take 1 or 2 more coats before I'm quite happy with it. But you get the general idea of like what we're working with. And then we'll go back through and hit up some of those highlights and stuff. Let's crack on the sign really quick while we wait for that to dry. So I'm going to use Negro Gold from scale 75. It's like this nice, dirty kind of rich color. And I'm also going to use Decayed Metal because we want that really like worn copper, you know, fancy sign. They spent a lot of money on it. That's why Kingpin was really happy to mash it up. Switch to my size 2 brush because, of course, this is a pretty big area. We're just going to go in and we're going to hit this thing up. I'm just going to go all over it. Whoop. For as much as you guys can probably see on camera because of how big Kingpin is over that sign. Let's see. How about that? There we go. So mostly just being careful around the foot. Although really our shoe is just pure black, so it's not like it's hard to fix if we need to. Not being too precious with it. This up. There's our first base layer. So we'll hop over and we're gonna do, let's get that diamond finished up. I come back with my Brilly White. I just want to hit this one more time. Hit this one more time. I'm gonna add a little bit of color to those jewels. So I'm gonna use my fluorescent red to make a ruby, or the approximation of a ruby. There's a lot of different ways to do this too. I kind of like this way just because it's fast. So I'm going to thin, it's already a pretty translucent paint, the fluorescents are. So I'm just going to make sure it's nice and thin. I come in, I'm going to hit most of the gem surface that I want, and I'll just leave a little sharp white spot at the top. And there you've got a nice shiny gem, all ready and done. We'll just say because he's wearing his red and he's a very color coordinated man. We'll rock all of it to be rubies. So there's the ruby on that finger. And what the heck? He's a rich man. Let's make this little diamond thing a ruby too, just because I'm having fun and it's going pretty well. So there we go. Got a little bit on our finger, but that's okay. Clean brush, take it right off. Come back to paints. We're just going to hit the face with one more layer of stuff. And again, this is just a mix of our darker glaze color head wasn't quite dry, so I'm just smoothing everything out. And then I want to come back in to where our fingers are. We're just going to hit right here, over here. Just get a really rich skin. Quite beautiful. We know Wilson Fisk spends a lot of time at beauty parlors getting skin treatments. He's gone through a lot of hot lava baths and youth-like skin tones. All right. How much time do I have left? I still have to announce all of my half of the picks for our painting challenge last month, so I don't have all the time in the world. But I think we can get through a couple of other things. So we're going to do some quick highlights using African Shadow and our Ishtar Pink. We're going to find a clean spot on the palette. Come in. I'm just going to build out some really quick highlights. All right. So really what I'm looking for here, kind of at the cheeks, the chin. Whoop. The eyebrows, because I'm not going to paint those as hair because I just think it looks too bushy. So this is just really simple, really quick, kind of blocking out my face highlights, and I think this is something that you can do. It's good practice, but to be honest, if I was just looking to get this guy tabletop ready, I probably really wouldn't bother with this step too much, because, well, the extra highlighting is nice. It's not super necessary. Come in and blend that out. But I'm mostly just looking like raised points on the knuckles, the cheeks, the eyebrows, any place where, you know, if you look, you're going to get kind of either the light to hit it harder, or you're going to lose some of that, you know, depth of color. And we're just kind of smoothing it out with our second brush. That forehead a bit, because we know that light's really going to pop off of that shiny bald head of Mr. Fisk. He waxes, no question. He keeps it with a nice glow. It's part of his mystique, part of his charm. And then what I can do is I can come in with a bit more pink, using our brown, and maybe use a bit of that sanguine color, that Hashtur purple. And yes, more of that. There we go, a little bit more of that. All right, that looks pretty good. He has this really like pouty face, so we'll paint that bottom lip a little bit and give it that color. We just have to be careful not to get the top lip, because if you do, they'll look like they're wearing clown makeup, and that's never good. So my advice, always just paint the bottom lip. Don't ever try to paint the top lip. Come back in and thin that out a little bit with our darker color. That going on. And that gives some nice pop to the lip, which helps the face a lot. And a bit of shine from our stuff, but There we go. I'm pretty happy with that. Might go one more level just because I can't stop myself. And I'm having a lot of fun, so Josh can't stop me. He could, but he can't. We'll just pretend he can't for right now. Just gonna come back in and do some really quick highlights here. Again, hit the nose, chin, cheeks, top of that head again. Can really work that shiny spot on the top of the head to really give us that pop of light. There we go. There's kind of our Kingpin all set to go. All right, so I have like 3 minutes. I think we can get through this. We'll just hit the rings really quick now that we're done with the skin. And overall, outside of a little bit of cleaning up and maybe painting that cane black one more time, because we can just have a flat black cane, that's fine. I'm just going to hit that ring like that. Come back into the side. Use my scrubby brush, fix that. It's over here. And while we're at it, just do a little quick dot highlight on these buttons just to reclaim some of that gold from our purple. This ring will just be solid gold. You can wear some gold rings, that's fine. They don't all have to be rubies. It's just ridiculous. Come down here and I'm just going to use this. Let's see if you can see that. There we go. So I'm just using the edge of the brush and kind of dry brushing across the letters on the Nelson and Murdoch to really let them pick out. So you can see how now they stand out a bit more, and then I'll do that across the top bar and the bottom bar. That just helps. And then if I run a wash over that, which I probably would, it'll give it that nice like worked bronze look. And last but not least, I'm just going to grab my flat black and I'm just going to hit that cane. Whoop. Not too worried about that. Come in here and just separate between the fingers. And we could do the cane any color we wanted. We're just going to keep it nice and really, really dark. And for a quick highlight, I'm going to grab some of that remaining blue black that I mixed up for the tie. I'm just kind of going to wet blend a really quick highlight line. Down the cane. Quick line like that, and I'll be happy with that. Looks like I got a little overzealous here, so we'll just cover that knuckle back up. And one more time through, because our paint is getting pretty dry up here. I'm just gonna hit all those raised areas of the face again, so nose, chin, cheeks under the eyes. Get our ears too. And just like a really quick run over just to make sure everything's blended out. Just to help accentuate where the eyes are, I'm going to grab a bit of my dark blue ink, and we're just going to come in. And I hate painting eyes, so I don't normally do it, but it's always good to go in with a little bit of ink or wash. We went a little too heavy, so we'll just come in and clean some of that out. But it's really easy, especially on a lot of Crisis Protocol miniatures and stuff, to just get a little bit of that dark, you know, either brown, or in this case I'm using like a dark blue, which kind of plays well with the African shadows in the skin that we used. To help get that face to really pop. And there we go. That is a tabletop ready Kingpin featuring his finest in evening classic black tuxedo. It's probably not a tux. Looks like a zoot suit kind of, but there we go. So very happy with how this guy turned out. There's only a couple things that I'd probably do to just take him to that next level. I would wash the sign, obviously finish out the base. And I might go back through and just hit the skin a couple more times with some different highlights and stuff as it dries out. But overall, he looks very suave, very sinister. He's going to fit into my Cabal list perfectly, as well as being the own leader of his organized crime syndicate. And just to show you how different of a tone you can get between your two, we'll put my more traditional Spider-Man comic Kingpin next to the Stream Kingpin. So you can see both are pretty amazing, and you can really change the feel and the tone and even the character a little bit just by choosing different colors and exploring. So it's my little tribute to an amazing actor, and I know a lot of people like to rag on it, but I actually really liked the Daredevil movie that came out some years ago. I own it on DVD, and I would totally watch it right now if I wanted to. So it may not be the best, but it's definitely far from the worst. All right, so with that said and done, let me switch my camera here. Boop. Jump back to me really quick. So obviously every month we hold a painting challenge for you guys to paint along with us, and the staff goes through and we pick our favorites out of the submissions, hashtag Painting Protocol on Instagram. Last month's challenge were Show Us Your Metallics. This month's challenge is Spider-Verse. So if you haven't already, hop on Instagram, hashtag Painting Protocol, show us all of your spider people, show us your spider villains, your spider foes, your green goblins, all of that good stuff. We're going to be picking those at the end of the month. We've already got some amazing submissions. Can't wait to see what you guys are doing. With that said, I'm going to show off 3 of our picks. Dallas will complete all of our picks on his show on Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific. So this first one was a really awesome Winter Soldier done by Clad. One, I really liked the non-metallic kind of metal effect that he used, or they used here on the arm. It really makes it pop. Obviously, Winter Soldier, the most iconic piece of his kit is going to be that bionic arm. And so the colors chosen here, the blue shading, all of that stuff really combined together to make a really poppy, fun comic feel and look. And of course, I'm a sucker for good conversions and hobbying, and so I really like what they did here with Winter Soldier, changing his pose a little bit, adding the extra base elements. It all pulls together to tell a really cool narrative and makes a really good feeling Winter Soldier. Next up, we have Mike Meeple with an amazing Ultron. True metallics are kind of my jam. I'm not much of a non-metallic guy. I really appreciate the artistry, but it's not something that I have a lot of interest in diving into or experimenting with in my hobby stuff. So this is really where my heart lies, is in these true metallics going on. And so this is really cool. It's a great Ultron. He's got really great textures going on as well. You can feel the grittiness of the metal. The glow really accentuates stuff. So another really fun kind of take on metallics in general. And of course, guess who was really popular in this competition? For whatever reason, everybody's favorite Murderbot, Ultron. We got a lot of really great Ultron submissions. I didn't want to be biased and be like, well, you can only pick one Ultron, because there's just so many good ones. This is another one, very different in terms of tone and feel based on the picture. You know, you have a lot of browns and kind of grungy dirtiness in that last Ultron. This Ultron's really sharp, more blues, really poppy, has the same great textures. Then, of course, the way in which both artists utilized the glow and the OSL kind of changed the feel of the miniature as well. So this one, you can really feel that menace burning off of that reds. They did a great job of building up the colors and making you feel like that energy blast is coming your way. On top of tying those colors together with the way in which they shaded the metallics and really made those spot glosses pop and glow. So a lot of really great work, a lot of fun stuff to see. There were so many great entries. It was really hard to pick this month as a staff. It usually is. But those are the ones that we really enjoyed overall. And kudos to those painters out there. Again, there are 3 more picks, I believe, that Dallas will be showing off on his stream. Check that out. He's going to finish up his Kingpin. We'll see where he goes with his more traditional white suit Kingpin. He had a few more things to finish up. And you can check that out at 1 p.m. Pacific on Thursday. Also, if you're around tonight, you can come hang out with Will Pagani, our lead developer, and myself as we talk designing Crisis Protocol. This is going to be a repeat, sort of, or a new take on the panel that we did for Gen Con, where we're going to talk about game design, theory, philosophy, and how they apply to what we do in Marvel Crisis Protocol. You can go to the PAX Online website, where they're running events all this week, and check that out and come hang out with us. We have a couple of painting classes as well, or seminars, streams, whatever you want to call them. We're going to be hanging out, doing some cool stuff with everybody. Dallas is going to be doing an intro to miniatures painting. And then I believe tomorrow he and I are going to be painting a very special X person. So be sure to check those out as well. They're a little later, so you can hang out after hours with the AMG crew. We're going to have a lot of fun. And we're looking forward to kind of bringing the game to a whole new audience as well. So if you do happen to hop in, be welcoming, be ready to go. We've got a lot of people who are going to be really interested. We're very excited to be able to communicate and talk with a whole new audience from the PAX side. But we're going to have a lot of fun. So be sure to check those out as well. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate all y'all out there. We will see you on the next one, if not sometime during one of the PAX panels. Till then, take care, be safe, and we will talk with you very soon. Goodbye.